Back for another edition of Retire Wise with Shawn Maloney, and we are going to talk about income planning. Shawn, we're going to kind of build maybe a little bit of an educational database here on YouTube of some basics as well, right, to kind of kick things off a little bit as we're launching this and getting things going. And so this week, let's talk just income planning. It's kind of the, many would say if you don't have an income plan, you don't have a retirement plan, right?
100%. It's the foundation, brother.
Right. You're trying to build a house. You don't start with the roof.
Right. No, you got to start. Everybody starts to think about, hey, what's my big number? What's that number in the sky? I was like, well, let's take a step back just a second, right? What are we really doing here, man? We're replacing your paycheck, so it's all about that income.
Yeah, there you go. Well, let me give out some business here before we get started. But as always, if you got questions, you need some help, click on one of the links in the show descriptions down below to reach out to Shawn and the team. We've also got the number on the screen if you're watching. It's 404-692-1233. If you're listening only, 404-692-1233, or just find them online at retirewisepro.com. That's retirewisepro.com. So, as I said, if you don't have a, income plan, you don't really have a retirement plan. So I know this is going to be kind of tough, but think about like all the current clients you have and you've had. When they first came in to see you for the first time, if you had to guess, how many actually walked in with an income plan?
I would say about maybe 5%.
Okay. Pretty low. Pretty low. Yeah. Right. And that's probably why they're there to see you. So that's good. Right. Why do you think that is, that so many people are underprepared? Because this is my theory, Shawn, but you tell me, because you've been doing this a long time, 20 plus years in the industry. You've seen a lot of stuff. Yeah. We get a collection of things through life, and then we don't know how to really kind of make them work for us. Yeah. Right.
I look at it. I relate it to a junk drawer, right?
Okay. Yeah.
You walk through life in your house. You probably have a junk drawer, right? I'm sure you do.
I got two of them.
That's right. Some people have a closet and a garage, but that's another story. Right? It's the same thing with people's accounts, right? They get all these accounts and they throw it all together. There's a lot of treasures in there, but it's not organized, right? And it's going to take you 30 minutes to find anything. And so it's just, that's one of the reasons people are kind of, scared or worried to talk about it. They think that they just have a mess. Right. So it's really just about that organization, and they just don't know what to do with it. How do I get all that? I built all this up over these years. Great job. Now, what do I do with it? Right. There's just not enough people talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause we go to work, and that's been changing through the years, through the decades. So, obviously it used to be a lot more people would come in who've been at the same place for 30 or 40 years. We're seeing a lot more people, having different jobs throughout their career. But if you were kind of starting to give the basis, I guess, of the income plan things, what would some of those breakdowns be? Because obviously a lot of people, we walk in and we go, okay, I've got my 401k, and I've got a savings account, and, Social Security is going to be happening. What do I do? But what's some other things to think about? What's some other stuff that's on the list to how do you build that income plan?
Yeah. So, you hit part of the things, right? So if you have a pension, you have Social Security, those are some known things, and that's kind of a base. But normally for most Americans, that doesn't provide enough for your overall retirement, right? So you have those 401ks, you got those IRAs, all those things out there. Now you have to figure out how to make that work, right? There's no button inside your 401k that says, turn on income and okay, let's make it last, right?
They don't want to make it too easy.
Yeah, right. But see, think about it. Retirement planning is relatively a newer concept.
Right.
Parents or grandparents back in the day, man, you had your retirement party, you turned on your pension, you turned on your Social Security, and you just sat back and had a great retirement, right? Well, now you got to say, okay, now I got this money in these other accounts because we don't really have pensions much anymore. How do I turn that around and make that into a stream of income, right? Yeah. So that's one of the first steps. One, we're going to figure out, okay, what is your need? Right. And then do an assessment of what you have. Then we just start building out that plan of how do we turn that into different streams of income outside of Social Security and pension. So it's that personal savings nest egg that we got to start converting.
Yeah. And if you think about what the government's been telegraphing to us for a while now, the Secure Act changes, then the Secure Act 2.0 changes, some of the new things the current administration's been trying to put in or pass and put into place. The writing is on the wall that the personal savings has got to be more and more. We all have talked about, and we've ad nauseum, you hear about Social Security's got problems and things of that nature, right? So the writing's there to put that, the onus on ourselves. Yeah, and to your point, if you were kind of doing the whole milking stool kind of strategy, three-legged stool years ago for our grandparents, they had a pretty good pension, they had Social Security and a modest income. They were good.
Yep.
Now it's, a lot more than modest income needed.
Well, now all the pressure's on that third leg of the stool for your personal savings, right?
Yeah.
The pension's not there. Social Security's a little shaky, and it's not going to go away, but it's shaky, right? So it puts all the pressure on that personal savings. And then let's just think, most people don't know how to, we have a profession, we like doing it, but most people don't know how to build financial plans and do all this stuff. And they don't have the time to go build and research and how to do it the right way. So that's why we have a profession.
There you go. Well, unless you're an athlete, a professional athlete, or a professional rock star, most people don't retire more than once. Those guys seem to retire they seem to retire all the time, right? Guys or gals. But give me some of the items that you guys do inside the income strategy piece and the income planning portion. Obviously, we talked about Social Security. So like looking at ways to maximize that's clearly going to be one of those.
Yeah. So we look at it, we build these plans out through what we call a fiscal house, right? There's a foundation, a walls, and a roof, right? So the foundation is where that income sits. And throughout this podcast, we'll talk about these different things, but the foundation is where that income comes from. So we're going to be a little more conservative there. We're never taking big swings in retirement at this point, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's risk is going to be a little bit different based on what your needs are, but we want to concentrate on that foundation. All right, let's figure out what your core need is. How much do we need your nest egg to generate? And then we're going to figure out what investment vehicles to get you into to start generating that income, right? And that needs to be divided out, right? The income is one phase, and then you move up into those walls and roofs that we'll talk about later. Those serve different purposes. So inside that income, what are the different ways, whether it's different products that we can use or investment vehicles to generate that standard recurring income for you, right?
Gotcha.
We want to recreate, if in essence, you're creating your own little personal pension, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Because that pension's not there. We got to replace what that pension did for that, income. All by the way, what usually comes with income? Taxes,
right? Yeah.
So that tax planning gets deeply ingrained into there because just because you're taking money out, guess what? The government's going to say, "Hey, I want my piece of the pie."
Uncle Sam's got his hand out. So
right. So we want to be efficient and build those tax strategies along with the income to figure out what your optimal path is.
And I'd imagine that you're also building inside the income plan as you're working through this process, taking into account inflation, which we've all woken up to the past few years, right? We spent many years being fairly asleep to it. I liken inflation for the longest time to calories. Like we know we don't want them, but when you're in the mood for a cheeseburger, you don't really care what the calories are. You go get the cheeseburger, right? Well, inflation was kind of that way for the longest time, and then obviously for the last 4 or 5 years, it's been like, oh, everybody's very aware of inflation once again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure. If you don't count for that the right way, you're going to find yourself pretty short down the road. And now we're using a higher inflation rate than we used to in the planning, right? Okay. The government wants to try to keep inflation around 2%. We haven't been there for a minute, so you got to factor that in. You try to factor it in with Social Security benefits. If you're going to get Social Security benefits, they do those COLA adjustments. Think of it that way.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes, right. And it fluctuates. Sometimes you're going to get it. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes it's this big. Sometimes it's that big.
Yeah.
Well, it got to be the same thing with your nest egg.
For sure. Yeah. I'll probably reference my mom on this show many times, Shawn, because I think she falls really well into some ways we could illustrate this. She's 85 years old. She's on Social Security only, not the retirement she dreamed of, right?
Sure.
So you can make that work. It is not what most people are shooting for. The idea behind hopefully the podcast and what you guys do is to prevent people from having to be in that situation. But she makes little funny witticisms that I steal and use on my shows on a regular basis. And one of them is around the COLA. For a number of years, it was pretty small, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, you might as well just call that thing a diet cola because it ain't a whole lot to it.
I love it. Well, they get a little skinny. So
they get a little skinny. And of course, a lot of times it winds up getting eaten up with the Medicare changes, right?
Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing. People don't really realize, Social Security and Medicare are tied together. They're funded in the same pool.
Yeah.
Right. So they definitely affect each other. So Medicare has a big strain on it, just like Social Security does.
So, all right. So to kind of bring it back here and wrap things up for this episode, keeping it short and sweet, just the basis. If we're building the foundation of the house, the financial house, the income is got to be there because you need a paycheck just like you had when you were working, when you're no longer working, right? That's the whole point of turning that 401 or whatever you have into it. And I think that's where so many people don't see. I think that's where the written plan, Shawn, really starts to help, right? Because when you lay all that stuff out, you've gone through the planning process, people can see, okay, I'm going to be getting this in the mail or, ETF or whatever. It makes it a little easier to see it and understand, oh, this is how we turn that into an every week or every month check.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, everybody deserves to have a written plan, right? I don't care how old you are, how young you are, how much you have or don't have. You need a written plan. I put it this way. We're in Georgia where our office is at. We serve people all over the country, but we're located in Georgia. And I wouldn't drive or let me ask you, would you drive from Georgia to Texas without a map, right?
No. And we're spoiled now because we got everything doing it for us. But, I remember, like you had to have the map. And so you needed something. So, yeah.
You're going to get lost a whole bunch of times. So why would you go on a vacation or a trip and not have a map for something that's as important as your retirement? Turn on that retirement guide map and see where you're going. And it also, hey, by the way, it also tells you where the traffic is, the pitfalls and all that kind of stuff, right? That's the years of doing this and building optimized plans is that you got to think of all those ancillary things. It may apply to you. It may not. Yeah. I'd rather be prepared and know where it's coming from than not.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? We used to remember those AAA triptych things that they used to give, and all the old school maps. Now, at least now GPS will say traffic slowing down ahead, or traffic accident ahead, so you'll get warnings so that you can kind of look for some of those pitfalls. So the technology got better. Same thing with the planning process, and if you want to throw in the travel analogy into that real fast as we wrap up, most everybody's been on a plane, right? At this point, you're pretty adamant that you hope the pilot has done his pre-checks, that he's checked everything and knows everything's groovy before he takes off. Well, it's the same thing with your financial plan. You want a checklist. You want to make sure everything's been checked so that when you fly into retirement, it's smooth sailing, right?
100%. You want to eliminate the bumps as much as you can.
As much as you can. Life's going to life. Murphy is going to show up and do things,
It's how you react to it. And do you have a plan that helps you plow through it and take the emotions out of it?
Yes, sir. There you go. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week here on the podcast. This is Retire Wise, talking about income planning. It's that foundation you got to start with. Much more content to come as we continue to get things going here with Shawn. So please consider, subscribing to us on Apple or Spotify in audio form, and of course on YouTube for the video content as well. And as always, if you need help, reach out to Shawn and his team. You can find them online again, as I said earlier, at retirewisepro.com. That's retirewisepro.com. We have links in the show description. And with that, we will see you next time. Shawn, thanks for your time, my friend.
Appreciate it, Mark.
We'll see you next time here on the show.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business RetireWise LLC. RetireWise LLC is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by RetireWise LLC are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. RetireWise LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by RetireWise LLC.